Blow, blow, blow till I hear the breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Hello, welcome to the Spirit of Life program. My name is Lucy Pace, and today we have the pleasure of having Tanya Lacey back, who is a director of Intercept Experience. Hello, Tanya.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Hi.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Tanya, wondering if you could share with the viewers, last week you explained to us how you evolved into your business, and maybe tell us again what your business is about, just briefly, and the experiences you've had within the business.
Okay. So Intercept Experience really is about creating space for important discussions, and we've primarily been working with organisations. So we would start with the managing director of the company, and then from there we might get invited to then continue that process with their people. And we have a particular process, Lucy, that we've developed that hones in on what I would call 36 key areas that underpin success and leadership. But they're actually principles that are timeless wisdom, and a lot of them have actually come out of the Bible.
Okay.
So any leadership book that you pick up today, if you were to distill the secrets from it, basically you will find that they come out of old texts and the Bible. And so this is something that probably people don't really appreciate, but we draw these things out. So things like how visionary someone is, how much of a listener they are, how aware they are, how perceptive they are, and so on. And we use these principles in shaping someone to come fully into their gifts in their organisational context.
Okay. And in that, do you find sometimes that people are in a job that they're not totally satisfied with? And is this to do with them not utilising their true purpose or their true giftedness in that job?
Absolutely. So interestingly, where we've evolved from is that in some respects I'm an entrepreneur. I didn't finish high school. I had a mentor, and then I honoured my own knowing, my own spiritual knowing. I think there are a lot of people who end up in a job, which I call just over broke. But a job is something that perhaps they felt compelled to be involved with, to toil for money, rather than being able to use their gifts or their God-given gifts. And so what Intercept's about is helping people to understand what their gifts are and apply them in the right environment. So that might mean staying in the current working environment they're in, or making some decisions or some change so that they're fulfilling what they've actually been put on the planet to do.
Yes, so that would bring it with it contentment, I would imagine.
Yes.
Tanya, what are some of the obstacles that you've had in establishing this firm, and just with people in general? Has there been any teething problems along the way?
Okay. I suppose the original vision I've always known has been, I believe, given by God, and really the obstacle's been with me, because there have been many times when I've probably been doing my own will and experimenting and trying things that have been something that I've wanted. And so oftentimes I've drawn other people into the business, but perhaps it's been for the wrong reasons. That soon sorts itself out. I think one of the keys to replicating what it is that we do is actually finding people to deliver this experience, who share the ethos and share the vision that Ivan and I have. So the obstacles have really been around making sure that the spirit of the work is delivered with the right people, by the right people.
So how do you determine who the right people are? How do you establish that? Because it's not easy when you meet a person for the first time.
By their fruits you shall know them, Lucy. And sometimes your intuition might guide you in a particular direction, and you might after a period of time, it sorts itself out. I think it's about putting people into a particular environment, seeing what gets produced, and going from there. Having said that, there have been fabulous people that have been involved in our business, but interestingly, what's evolved, this is our 15th year this year, are some of our clients who have actually been intercepted and who do share our values and our ethos are actually coming on board as deliverers of the intercept experience.
That's a great outcome for you.
Yes.
Tanya, you said before that you were your own obstacle at one stage because you were really actioning your own will rather than your life's purpose.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? What's different now? How do you how do you go with it? How do you determine which will to go with now?
Someone asked me this the other day, and the quick answer is the story of Jonah in the Bible, where and Nineveh, where Jonah was actually called by God to do something, and he tried to run away. And you can try to run from God, and you can try to run from the Spirit, but you can't hide. So if we're actually designed to do something, it eventually catches up with us. And I think this has been the similar experience with me. I think I've been allowed to go off the original purpose, perhaps spend a lot of time in one-on-one, but if we come back to that original vision, in my instance, I think my calling has really been around get this out to as many people as possible, which has meant more group work and working with big groups. I actually don't like being in the spotlight, and a lot of people say to me, but Tanya, we need you to come and speak. We need it. I've never wanted this to be about me. I've wanted it to be about people's experiences. So I'm now learning, like taking up opportunities like this program to speak and be prepared to be in the spotlight. Get out of my own way.
It's very interesting. It seems like the Spirit of Life has certainly taught you along the way.
Yes.
We're going to have to go to a break. We'll see you back after the break. Welcome back to the Spirit of Life. My guest today is Tanya Lacey, and my name is Lucy Pace. Welcome back, Tanya.
Thank you, Lucy.
Tanya, before the break, you were explaining how your wills have changed from your will to God's will. Was that right to say in your business?
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes.
Please?
I think at this time in life and the world with everything that's happening, I think it's becoming more difficult to actually have conversations about God, and if you're a Christian, to talk about Christ or Jesus. And so for people who've been hearing the full story, that whole Christ-centered theme has been there for me personally. And along the way, Lucy, I've had the privilege of meeting some CEOs and leaders who are in what would be perceived to be the secular, world. But when they actually have the opportunity to talk one-on-one, God or the Spirit or the hand of God always comes up. And I think it's really important to make sure that we, particularly in the work we're doing, create the opportunity in the space for people to have those conversations, because there is definitely a craving for it and a need for it. And society is probably removing that opportunity. And so that means for me that Intercept's actually going to go harder at making sure that we are an enabler to have those discussions. I had a situation recently, in the last few weeks, I was with the CEO of a company, he was actually American. It's about a $500 million business, and part of our process is for someone to tell their story. And as he was sharing his story, the most incredible things had happened for him. And so I asked him, with all these positive things that have happened in your life, what do you attribute that to? And he opened up and said, shared his faith. And I said, so Is that something that you know, comfortable for us to continue talking about? He said, absolutely. And as he continued talking about his story, he said, as you can see, Tanya, the hand of God has been in my life. And I just think the whole conversation shifts from being about today, about dollars. It actually shifts it from the seen world to the unseen world. People have a plan for their life. And one of the questions I like to ask people is, that's a fabulous plan for your life, but what are you planning to do when you die? Where are you planning to be after you leave this planet? And people don't put a lot of time and thought into that. And this brings the whole eternity thing back into question, which puts focus on the unseen and then creates an opportunity to start thinking about faith in Christ, or their faith in in God, and understanding their connection with Jesus, and to develop that. And then there's an integration between the seen and the unseen. It's not a difficult conversation. So this is what's occurred in these one-on-one discussions about God.
That's a great example of a great witness from your works. It would have taken a lot of courage for a corporate person to stand up and give witness, to say it was his faith that shifted, because he's been taking the courage to go that way. Something has, he's had a transformation in his life. He's obviously experienced a transformation.
Yes.
How difficult is it to bring God into a conversation within the corporate world?
It's really interesting. In the work that we're doing, we are there 100% for that person, and we are creating that space. And I don't know if this is a blessing of the work, but inevitably it comes up. So whether we're putting out the vibe that it's safe, whether the Holy Spirit's present in that time, which I'm sure is the case, depending on who the client is. Sometimes, there's a quiet moment before where a little prayer is said, to yourself, and inevitably it comes up. And I'm finding with time, as time goes on, the companies we're dealing with are ones that actually are willing to do the introspection. And part of being a human being is that we have a spiritual element, and so the spirit of life comes up in those conversations.
Okay, so you've taken the courage, if you like, and it does take courage to have a conversation about the unseen, about the spiritual with people.
Yes.
And it's obvious that you've seen some remarkable changes. Do you have any other examples or testimonies that you can share with us where a person has really experienced a shift in the way away from their original motives or agenda, if you like? What does it do to a person? Do they remain in that self-focused place, or what's the shift?
Okay. I'd just like to draw a distinction here around language. The self-help movement as such is, and it's why I don't like using the word coaching. Coaching as such is all around, self-help and self-confidence and self-fulfillment and self-worth and self. And the word that constantly comes up is self. My experience has been, you can coach someone can go to counselling as much as they want to, but there comes a point where they hit a wall, and that wall is that they're in pain about something, and there's a pattern that's been repeated in their life. And they can see a psychologist if they want to, and sometimes that doesn't work. But sometimes they're in so much pain that we say to them, look, we're not psychologists, we've hit a wall here. This is something that you can even give to God, or you can take to therapy. Which would you prefer? And really it's up to them, and I suppose that's where they have the opportunity to strengthen their relationship with God and get healed in their faith through their belief in Jesus and Him being the way and the truth. Other people who perhaps are not of that belief, or they're not in that time where they've come to that, might decide to go and see a psychologist. However, there are a lot of modes of therapy that place the self at the throne of everything, and that's not what we're doing. We're actually creating the opportunity for them to realise that God's actually in the driver's seat, and that God has a purpose for them, and how do they align what they are doing now with that, And then when that happens, things actually run really smoothly.
Tanya, you've also established an organisation called Intercept Poverty.
Yes.
Which I would love to talk to you about.
Okay.
We're going to another break now.
Yes.
And we'll take that up when
Sure.
we come back.
Okay.
You're watching the Spirit of Life program. We'll see you back straight after the break.
Go till I feel the breath of the Spirit blowing in me. Blow, blow, blow till I feel the breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Welcome back. My name is Lucy Pace. You're watching the Spirit of Life, and I'm interviewing Tanya Lacey. Welcome back,
Thank
Tanya.
you, Lucy. Thank you.
Tanya, I asked you about your Intercept Poverty organisation. Would you like to give us an introduction in that and how that's evolved for you?
Okay. So, Intercept as a business has afforded me many opportunities which I'm grateful for, one of which is travelling, extensive travelling. In the year 2000, my husband and I were in South America. On that trip, we were on the Amazon River, and the couple that had organised that trip, she was an Amazonian Indian and he was a son of a missionary, and he in his own right had adopted 5 street boys from Sao Paulo in Brazil. So they were 5 boys of African descent. So my husband and I decided that that would be a wonderful way to start our family. So we returned to Australia in 2000 and we decided to go down the adoption path. We realised that the adoption process in Australia is not simply writing a cheque like they do in America and some countries, but it's actually a very deep, thorough process, working with Department of Human Services here, and we inquired about that process, and the program that opened up through a whole series of events for us was Ethiopia. So we started our process of adopting a little boy, as it happened, from Ethiopia. So the idea or the inspiration was in 2000, and the actual adoption happened, we travelled to Ethiopia in the year 2004, and we collected our son Adam on July the 1st, 2004 is when I became a mother.
Wow.
So in that collection of Adam, an amazing thing happened, and I think this is the hand of God as well, where the women that were actually running the orphanage were Maltese. My father is Maltese, as I've shared and you know, and that opened up the opportunity to come back to Ethiopia and help the people at the orphanage, these people at the orphanage. And at that time that we collected Adam from Ethiopia, we couldn't stay for very long, but I made the commitment to Ludgata and Camilla that we would be back and we would be doing what we could to help them with, in particular, things like milk powder formula for the babies that are abandoned and that they take care of. So this was the start of Intercept Poverty.
Did you and your husband actually go there and work at the orphanage?
Yes.
Or
Yes, we
tell
did.
us a little bit about
Okay, so the first trip was the full collection process and really focusing on Adam and focusing on bringing him back to Australia. And then there's actually a Spirit of Life prompting here where I was researching the history of the orphanage because I had a very strong calling to keep going back to Ethiopia. And I did some research, Lucy, on this particular orphanage and discovered that the women that started it were linked to Monsignor Pace, who was actually a relative because my maiden name's Pace. And that cemented this feeling of making sure that we'd go back. And so we've been back quite a few times. We've actually physically been there, stayed in the orphanage, and we work there. And work isn't really work. Work is spending time with the babies, picking them up, holding them. They have a baby room in this orphanage that has around 30 babies, and they have a toddler room. They have an area for the children to go to school. and they actually have children up to about 16 years of age. So there's about 200 to 220 children at this particular orphanage.
And so how many helpers or carers would they have at any given time?
When we've been there, they've got a core group who are local women, mummies, who are local Ethiopian women. Then they do rely on volunteers. But it's actually two sisters from the Sacred Heart of Jesus that are running the orphanage with some other sisters. But Lukata and Camilla are the two that actually run this on a day-to-day basis. And these women in their 60s now.
Right. And so how did the concept of Intercept Poverty... how was it given birth?
Yeah. I think we had the word intercept and we were just taken by poverty. You went, how do we marry this up? Intercept poverty. It just made sense. And really, while it's one thing to be providing charity in some respects, the whole notion of Intercept as an organisation and everything we do is really around developing reliance on self and economic self-reliance rather than hand out, hand up. So my ultimate is to support the models, address the models, get the thinking of the models that people are using in Ethiopia, shift them from being about charity to being about sustainable, and that's where my commercial thinking comes in. So we're in the process at the moment of working on shifting these models, which are about replication and about cash flow in, not just about looking for charity. That's a whole other program probably, Lucy, but it's...
And of course it's like you helped in the corporate world, mentoring executives.
Yes.
You're really doing the same thing here, aren't you? Because you're empowering them to find out their purpose, their individual purpose.
Yes.
Even though their consequences are a little bit different to what we call the norm, as in a normal nuclear family. They're still in a corporate family or a community-based family. And here you are again mentoring regarding the structure of the orphanage, as well as having an impact, I would imagine, on the residents, the children that they have. We have about 30 seconds before we close the program, and I would love to invite you to come back, Tanya, because I think you've got so much more to share with us, and I know that you have, because I've heard a lot of your story. So would you be happy to do that some other time and come back and share more of your story and how you're raising the funds for this poverty, Intercept Poverty, etc.?
Yes, that will be fine.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program, and you've certainly kept me on the edge of my seat listening to the wonderful movement of the Spirit in your life. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Lucy.
You have been watching the Spirit of Life program. My name is Lucy Pace. Tune in again next week.
Breathe.